Thanks so much, Mark. It's so nice to be here with all of you, really. I just want to invite us to take a moment and notice our bodies, our feet on the ground, the chair supporting us, perhaps inviting our shoulders to soften. And receiving a breath, just arriving. Noticing what might be shifting for you, even in just this small moment of practice. As we prepare to explore this time of the year in the Jewish cycle, the Torah portion, just bringing our whole selves to this moment, our whole selves. And when you're ready, if your eyes are closed, you might want to open them or not. Welcome, everyone. So nice to be with all of you. We are in the month of Kislev, the month of Hanukkah. And in the Torah cycle, we begin the story of Joseph and his brothers. So I want to begin by considering what Hanukkah might be for us, just one lens, and then take us into our Torah portion before we sit together for a longer period. In Jewish numerology, 6 is associated with creativity. The 6 days of creation, while 7 is a number of completion, a Shabbat or pause within the cycle of time and the created world. The number 8 is beyond or outside of time. With its infinite loop, if you imagine an 8, kind of an infinity on its side. The Hasidic commentator, the Sfat Emet, says that 8 is a symbol of wholeness. The number 8 invites us to enter a realm in which everything is exactly as it should be, limitless, unchanging, a wholeness, a shlemut, that reflects and generates a deep shalom, a peace. A realm that reflects an undifferentiated oneness that the mystics say existed before creation. And this is the realm that we access, the Sfat Emet suggests, during the 8 days of Hanukkah. So take a moment and notice where this state of wholeness, of ease, of connection may be available to you in this very moment, and where it's not. With no judgment and with great care and compassion, just notice and rest in what's true for you right now for just a moment. In contrast to the wholeness, the oneness that we illuminate on Hanukkah, we find in this week's Torah portion the beginning of a very long and painful story of division in the form of sibling rivalry. Remember that Jacob began his life striving to overcome his brother, reaching for his brother's heel as they left the womb. In our portion, he transmits this competition to the next generation by singling out and favoring one son, Joseph. He gives him a special tunic, perhaps ornamented, or a coat of many colors. From a mystical perspective, we might think of this tunic as a physical manifestation of an ego boundary, the shell that we have around ourselves. Joseph may feel protected in his thick, beautiful covering, but he is less connected. This image evokes the Garden of Eden, where the first humans realize that they are naked and cover themselves, and in doing so, distance themselves from each other. This perspective of separation is adopted by Joseph's brothers, leading to jealousy and rage. But one brother, Judah, offers a glimpse of a different perspective, our Hanukkah perspective, that of oneness, of interdependence, of connection, and convinces the others not to kill Joseph. His argument is Ki achinu v'sarenu. He is our brother, our own flesh. So think of the first humans and the sense of this other person being bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. He is our brother, our flesh. Rabbi Natan, a student of Rabbi Nachman's, picks up on a tiny detail later in this story of this family that supports this perspective of oneness among the brothers. He points out that when the Torah describes Jacob's whole clan going down to Egypt in a few Torah portions, we are told that Shiv'im Nefesh, 70 souls go down. And Rachel, if you want to bring this up on the screen. 70 souls go down in the plural, not in the plural, not 70 souls, but 70 soul. This first Likutei Halachot, the first box. While this Belashon Yachid in the singular, really it's just clarifying a grammatical point, the Hasidic master reads this as an indication of Yachad, Echad, this oneness, the state that we can all touch into. But it's not just a grammatical point, it's a perspective of oneness that leads to the sense of somebody's soul in the singular rather than in the plural. And Rabbi Natan says, it's known that all souls are one because their roots are from the quality of all is one, all is good, in that first box. What is this quality of all is one, all is good? Rabbi Natan suggests that this is the state of Kodem Habriya, before creation. Now we live in the created world, Achar Habriya, as he would say, but our roots, he says, are in the primordial unified state of infinite oneness. So before and after creation aren't just moments in time. They're states of consciousness, and they both still exist in every moment. But really, he says that everything is actually still in oneness after creation, as it was in before creation. At the bottom of the second box, if you're following the source sheet. So even though it might not always seem like it to us, he argues that there is the state of oneness underlying everything. And that if you can scroll down a little bit, Rachel, the purpose of the Torah and mitzvot and perhaps our mindfulness practice, I would add, is to be in oneness, to encompass after creation in before creation. That is all one, all good. So Rachel, if you can scroll down, please. Yep, great, thanks. So we're not meant to get rid of the diversity in our world, but to see the oneness that is underneath and permeates all multiplicity as we celebrate our diversity and our uniqueness. In Genesis, God creates and then declares each thing kitov. Perhaps this is a hint that within each creation in our world of multiplicity hides this goodness, this wholeness, this primordial oneness that existed before creation, that Rabbi Natan calls all one, all good, ki tov. So why can it be so hard sometimes to see the world and each other through the lens of oneness and connection? Rabbi Natan describes a masach hamavdil, a separating veil that covers and obscures oneness. Joseph's coat, Adam and Eve's fig leaves or coverings. What creates that veil? For Rabbi Natan, it's the yetzer hara, the evil inclination. For us, it might be fear or greed or overwhelm or something else. Whatever makes us feel separate and isolated. Take a moment just for now to feel into what that might be for you. What separates you from others? What creates that masach mabdil, that separating veil? Rabbi Natan suggests that we can break that covering when we believe that even this veil is from the same divine source as all of creation. In that second box on your screen. How might this translate into our own lives? Perhaps instead of responding to our hurt and our fear by hiding, as Adam did in the Garden of Eden, we reach out to each other precisely in our places of vulnerability, precisely from our places of vulnerability, actually getting closer to each other from the very places that could cause walls or separating veils between us. This is not easy or even always possible to do. But when we can do this, Rabbi Natan suggests, we are choosing life and we transform the separating veil into supernal palaces that receive the light of divine oneness. And he says, blessed is the one who merits this. So seeing others from the perspective of oneness is really hard and complicated, but we might be able to soften and open our gaze a bit through our meditation practice. So I invite you to close your eyes if you're comfortable, or have a soft gaze. Coming back to our feet and our seat and our spine. Softening our shoulders, softening our jaw. And resting, just receiving each breath. And as we do so, our awareness may become more spacious, more fluid, more permeable. As we do this, we may be inviting a greater sense of connection, of wholeness into this particular moment in time, this particular breath of ours, embodied experience of ours. We are bringing before creation this primordial oneness just a little bit into our bodies, into this moment, into creation. Just receiving each breath. And letting it go. And if you notice thoughts, planning, distractions coming into your field of awareness, just gently return to your anchor in your breath. And if you're feeling settled, if your awareness is feeling stable and spacious, you may want to open the gaze of your awareness wider to whatever is most predominant in your direct sensory experience. And if you encounter tightness, holding, separating veils, just allowing whatever is true for you to be there just as it is. And noticing what happens when you bring your compassionate, curious, loving awareness to the places of holding. Just noticing what happens. And if you are finding that you're getting distracted, you can always return to the anchor in your breath. For the last minute of our practice today, invite you to just notice, is there some experience of spaciousness, of ease, of wholeness that's available to you in this moment, in your direct experience, your direct sensory experience? And if so, if not, allowing that to be, and if so, just making note of that so that you might return to that later as you go through your day, connecting this place of a hint of Kodam Habriya, of wholeness, of oneness, with our world of creativity and multiplicity. Just strengthening the pathway. And when you're ready, you might wiggle your toes, move a little bit, and gently open your eyes, inviting as much of that soft, compassionate, caring perspective of our mindfulness practice to stay with you as we engage with each other and go through our day.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Margie. And friends, we seal this beautiful practice, offering an opportunity for those of you who are in mourning or observing your site, or for whom it's the custom to join in mourner's Kaddish to do so. If you're not reciting Kaddish, we ask you please stay present for a few moments to support those who are, and you can put the name or names of those you're honoring in the chat now or after we recite Kaddish. Thanks to Rachel for sharing the words on the screen. And if you're joining me, please rise in body or in spirit, and you can unmute at this time. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Yama Dibrach Hirute, Biamlich Malchute, Chayechon, Vyamechon, Chaye Techal Beit Yisrael, Bagalat Bisman Kariv, Imru, Amen.
Amen.
Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevarach, Olam Ulamei Amaya. Yitbarach, Yishtabach, Yitbar, Yitramam, Yitnaseh. Yithadar, Yitalev, Yithalal, Shemei Dekudsha, Bechu. Ba'ela min kol birchata b'shirata, tush b'chata b'nechamata, da'amiram ba'alma, v'imru, amen.
Amen.
Yehi shlama rabha min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen.
Amen.
Oseh shalom b'mamav, uyaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru, amen.
Amen.
Friends, thanks so much for joining us today. And if you're leaving us now, I hope you'll join us tomorrow. For practice will be led by Cantor Carrot Spencer Shapiro tomorrow, Rabbi Robin Damsky on Thursday, and Rabbi Susan Leiter on Friday. So I'll line up for the rest of the week. And look forward to seeing you hopefully one of those days, if not all of them. And if you are staying with us, which we hope you will and can do, please join us for a conversation with Rabbi Margie Jacobs about today's teaching and practice. And you can put questions in the chat. Keep an eye out for that. If it's a question rather than an observation or reflection, just write question all in caps, and I'll keep an eye out for questions. Or I forget, Margie, you said you offered this teaching in a longer deeper version of it for those who might be interested. And I think we have a link to a recording of that.
Yeah, so Rabbi Jonathan Omerman was instrumental in founding the Institute for Jewish Spirituality. Um, and he taught several local rabbis and teachers here in Berkeley, really an entire semester, I think, on this teaching of Rabbi Natan and just the way he did with just really slowly opening up each verse. And last year there was a morning of study and meditation in his memory. And so I have a recording of the teaching that I did on this, which gets into a lot more opening up that text. So Rachel, if you want to put that in the chat again, that'd be great.
That'd be great. Thanks. Um, I want to also, we didn't get to do, I don't think, share it, Margie, but there's two quotes at the end of the source
Yeah,
sheet
thank you.
from
Um,
quite disparate sources, which maybe we can take a look at.
totally. So thank you, Mark. That's great. So Rachel, if you'll pull those up, just
I
the
got
bottom.
it. I happen to have it here because I was looking, so I got it,
And
Rachel.
these were two of Rabbi Jonathan Omerman's favorite quotes. Um, one was just apropos of what we were talking about today. Both of them are related. But the first, I've come into the world to see this. So think about the brothers, Joseph and his brothers. The sword dropped from people's hands, even at the height of their arc of rage, because we have finally realized that there is just one flesh. Sarenu, you are my flesh. One flesh we can wound, and it is ours. So when we see that the other is really from this lens of oneness, interconnected, interdependent with us, the sword may drop from the hand. And the other was really one of his favorites. For the simplicity on this side of complexity, think of the before creation and after creation, and oneness and multiplicity. For the simplicity on this side of complexity, I wouldn't give a fig. But for the simplicity on the other side of complexity, the simplicity that comes from engaging in the world of multiplicity and coming to some place of wholeness and peace and oneness from that engagement. For that, I would give you anything I have. So when we get to some sense of calm and peace from direct engagement with our sensory experience from the multiplicity of this body, that is worth anything.
Yeah. I just like struck by the juxtaposition of Hafiz and Oliver Wendell Holmes. I love
Yeah.
not the two that you imagine, having the conversation in the hereafter, but who knows? Who knows? Um, Laura's asking a question, which comes up frequently. So this is a meditation which really, based on this teaching about the spiritual awareness of the underlying oneness that preceded creation, that is embedded in creation. And I have a question about that after this. But Laura is asking, do you have any suggestions about finding a place of wholeness, ease, and connection when it's challenging to do so? So in terms of the teaching, I think it's might be when we are, really because of challenges, really kind of stuck in that world of multiplicity, right? Which is from which pain and suffering arises. And we can't will ourselves out of it. We can't just kind of we can't do a spiritual bypass around that, which would be to say, oh, like the teaching says it's a lie. So just forget about it. You're not really separate. So get over it. Right. So how do we use the practice there, would you say?
So, a couple of things. One is um, to look at what is feeding that separating veil. right? That masach hamavdil for us in that moment. Is
Mhm.
it fear? Is it overwhelm? What is the felt experience, right? And then our mindfulness practice would suggest that we then find whether there's a place in the body that we're actually holding that and bring our compassion there and our awareness there and just let it be and let it move on its own so that we take some time, if we have that time available to us, to just hold it gently and let it soften and open on its own rather than pushing through. But the other is to do this in relationship. That instead of responding to the places that might separate us and might cause us to hide as we think of the Garden of Eden, um, by retreating, we connect with the other precisely from our places of vulnerability, that we don't have to have it all together, that we can just name if the context is safe enough for us to do so. We can just name, I'm feeling scared right now, or I'm feeling overwhelmed, or whatever the thing is. And that can actually, instead of separating us, that can bring us into connection if the other person is open to that.
Mhm.
Um, so there are these different ways to work with it. The other is to focus on one thing in our direct experience. So we have this world of multiplicity, we have the wisdom of these bodies. Um, to just when we're feeling overwhelmed, scared, anxious, whatever it is, ask ourselves, what is true in my direct experience right now? And focus on one thing. And we know from our practice that often when we narrow our gaze, when we attend to one thing, one breath, for example, um, our awareness can soften and open on its own in response to that. It's a little counterintuitive, but it's been my experience.
Yeah. So that brings me to my question about the paradox. It's a paradox of we are embodiments of multiplicity, um, uh, and at the same time, all souls are part of the same soul. And then there's kind of the behavioral implications of that. The only part of the text that I struggled with um, was the idea or the describing of the world of multiplicity as a lie, right? Um, which is to say that it's not true, that we should reject that, right? And it struck me that it was I found that interesting, kind of a little discordant in Jewish mysticism, which is really about embodied Jewish spirituality, infusing this world. Not that the world is a lie, or that our ego is a lie, or that our body is a lie, or that's all an illusion. Well, that's there in Jewish mysticism too, truth be told, right? But the emphasis is on that synthesis or the integration, right? And actually honoring the body, honoring our unique selves, honoring, those are agents. I want to invite you to say a little bit about that.
And Rachel, if you can pull that piece up again, that might be helpful. Um, but really, the lie that he's talking about is that the state of oneness is completely separate from the state of multiplicity. That in this created world, there isn't anything that connects us. We're not interdependent, right? So, and from there, the dualistic created world is the essence of the hold of the lie, whose root is in its distance from oneness. So when we're cut off from a sense of oneness, then we have this sense of of this misperception. And I get into it more in
Right.
the
The
longer
misperception, just to
video.
put a point on it, the misperception is
Yeah.
that the world of multiplicity is the whole thing.
exactly, that there's nothing, that we are just completely separate from each other, that we're
Hmm.
not in this together, that what I do doesn't affect you. I mean, we know this in so many ways. If I, emit more carbon into the atmosphere, it affects you,
Hmm.
no matter where you live on this planet. And and there's so many examples I could give to
Right.
that,
Right.
but
It's
but
the
that's
butterfly
that's
effect.
the lie. And
Right.
he talks about it in the context of um, the four who enter the Pardes, and when you see these stones, don't say they're water, water. Like, see things as they are. But I knew if I got into that, we wouldn't have time to meditate. So watch the video. But yeah, so that this truth is that we are interconnected, that um, that you and I we're interdependent.
Mhm.
Um,
That I think what you were offering, and I think this is really, for me, part of the genius of Jewish spirituality, is to enter into the oneness through the diversity.
yes,
That it, through our each of us having our own specific experience to drop into that awareness of the connection.
right,
Um, as opposed to denying it or just making, building like I said before, like that spiritual bypass of like
yeah,
getting around it in some way. And it's a beautiful text, it's a really powerful text. And, this whole, the other thing I just want to say is, coming at, since you lifted up Hanukkah, right, is that it, it's so close and maybe basically just another way of saying the idea of the hidden light that's right, that's
or good
revealed, right?
news.
That's
Yeah,
the Or Haganuz
yeah,
in which is embedded in the darkness. That in this way that the oneness is embedded in the multiplicity, and that it's always there. And over Hanukkah, we're growing in our awareness of that oneness.
right. This light that allows us to see from one end of the earth to the other, right? This
Hmm.
light of oneness, that when we
Hmm.
light the Hanukkah candles, the Spada says that we are tapping into that light, right? And but back to what you were saying before, that that the reasons that we're afraid, for example, might be different. But if we bring into conversation the particulars of our experience, what we find underneath that, for example, is that we're both afraid. And so I think I've mentioned on this context before, the Sulcha project that our teacher, Dr. Malila Helmer Eshed, has been very involved in, and the work that they've been doing, particularly in this last year, of Israelis and Palestinians coming together from there and listening to the unique experience of each, and finding the commonalities underneath. So we can do that. It's really hard, but
Yeah,
we can do that.
yeah. Thank you for lifting that up, Margie. All right, we're at time. I really want to thank you for this beautiful teaching, and thank Rachel for holding our space today. Each of you for your consistent, amazing dedication to this practice and to showing up for yourself and for each other. So, really, thank you all for being here. And we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at our usual time or sometime soon. Many blessings, everyone. Be well.